Hello, Sacha here, and welcome to the very first edition of InTuition, my new talk podcast. So, most of you some of you might know me from doing music and radio for the last 13 years, and that's what I've been doing. And I am now starting my next phase of my journey. I'm 49 years old. I'm coming up 50 at the end of the year and I've got an awful lot to say. Anybody that knows me knows that I've got a lot to say. I used to chat a lot on the radio as well as playing music, but for this, I'm going to be all about the talk. So this podcast is called Intuition. Intuition is a big, big thing for me. My real initials are ESP, which stands for extrasensory perception. And I always used to kid about and talk about being psychic, and only ever kind of joking about it. But over the years, my intuition and my gut instinct and all of those things that you kind of following my heart have led me to really have an awful lot of faith now in my intuition. And that is my cat, if you can hear her in the background, scratching around because she won't leave. She's sitting on the whistle box. I'll tell you what's going to be happening with the whistles. My whistle is my original raving whistle. Not to diverge and go off on a tangent, but I will be telling you what's going on with the whistles because it's very exciting. But right here, right now, we're here to talk about intuition and my podcasting journey. So, what's it all about? So, my gut instinct and my intuition has led me on a path. I've always kind of followed my own path. I left home when I was 16 and went off on my journey through life, as you do. And I'm going to be starting this podcast with where what I would describe as my healing journey began. I didn't know it was beginning at that time. I didn't even know I was in need of healing, although I knew things weren't going according to what I might have planned. And life was difficult, really, really difficult in 2010. There was the highs and the lows. I was flying around the world with my DJs, but there was some difficult things going on in the background. However, I'm not going to be starting there. I'm going to be starting where my my healing journey began, and that was at Burning Man in 2010. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the podcast. Listen in. It's with two men that I met that year. One, Jefr Tale, and the other guy, Skywalker. And you're going to meet them in this podcast. And it is how I managed to end up at Burning Man. If you've never heard of Burning Man, then maybe have a quick look up before you listen or watch the podcast. And Burning Man is a art festival. It's held in the Nevada desert every year. It's now about 70,000 people, and it becomes the second biggest city in Nevada after Vegas for 1 week only, and that is Black Rock City. So my healing journey began, but I didn't know, in that desert. It was quite a trip, and this is what this podcast starts with. So this is Intuition with me, Sacha, your host, and off we go.
Darling, you look absolutely fantastic.
Why, thank you, sir.
You do. You look beautiful.
Thank you very much for saying. It's a fucking miracle. It surely is. It surely is. I have got a very small amount of filter on, but you know. I'm in my last year of my 40s.
Yeah.
And yeah, the last 3 years has been a fucking journey through all kinds of difficult stuff. It doesn't get easier with all of the crazy fucked up world out there and the crazy fucked up people in it.
Yeah.
We're all crazy kids in a fucked up world, eh?
I've been going away from people, just escaping them.
Yeah, I've really delved into my spirituality. And that has been a right journey, which I am going to do another podcast about. But yeah, it's been a very much a journey with here he is, yeah. It's been very much a journey that started with Mike's brother dying.
Yeah.
And the spiritual journey for it to be, hi Jeff.
Howdy.
Here he is. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It is raining.
It's been a while. It's raining here too.
It's raining there
it's
too.
The same. Yeah. Are we talking about, kind of world economy? Are we talking about the weather? It's raining. It's tough.
As I am English, we always start with the weather in England, don't we?
Uh-huh.
We always start with the weather, and it is pissing down as per normal in the UK.
It's is it raining in Connecticut? It's snowing in Boston.
Yeah, it's we're doing weather. It's 37 degrees. It is drizzling. Yeah. It's gray. It's kind of just blah. It's good though.
I loved it.
We're up. We're up. We're breathing. Actually, everything's awesome.
I'll pivot from the agenda of the day, Jeff. Yesterday, I picked up a anvil.
An anvil?
Are you gonna blow it up?
I don't know, but it was a guy who was vacating his shop. He had a nice pig anvil, maybe 160 pounds. So I got to walk away with that.
As a gift? Wow. Yeah. That's great. And an anvil, what reminded me of it was there was this woman that we met that was going to maybe do some fire for us one time. Her job in life was to blow up anvils.
Yeah.
And an anvil is basically just a lump of metal that she would explode into the air like 300 feet, and then it would land.
I can't remember her name. She was great. She was like Burning Man 2019.
Yeah, she was. She's a very cool lady. So
what a great
how are we
intro.
going to do this? Are we going to have an official start, or and is it just audio, or is it audio and video?
So it's audio and video. Yeah, well, I'm going to do an official start. And we're going to roll through it basically and just have a chat about Burning Man. And about my experiences with you and how I came into contact with you and what's gone down basically. So
remind me, because it's been a while, right? I mean, we can do it live if you want to, but
let's just do it live.
I was interested. Okay.
Wait, unless you want to ask me, if you want to ask me a question that is going to trigger a reminder or something before we start.
Well, the only thing I think I was chasing a couple of your DJs for Burning Man. I think is how I met you. And if I remember it right, and you could just remind me of who those DJs were, because good guys.
Jody was part of that. Jody Wisterhoff was part of that group.
Actually, Jody converged with that group, but I don't think Jody was originally your introduction. I think Jody was just there that year, or I had reached out.
It was Will Bailey.
Yeah,
Will Bailey.
Yeah, and who was the other guy that has a couple names? Great young kid.
Filthy Rich and Spectre.
What's his name?
Filthy Rich. Filthy Rich, and he's also known as Spectre on his techno alias. And obviously, it was Jody Wisterhoff, and Elite Force was the other person that played for you, but I wasn't actually in my RV, which is a perfect start. And I will just kick off and start it because this is This is the gold that we need. So,
And Will Bailey, he had a couple of aliases as well, right?
Quokka,
What? Twalker.
Quokka, and
And,
Bass Weasel. And he's now Low Stepper.
yeah. And has continued to do well, right?
He's done absolutely fantastically. Yeah, he's a brilliant artist. Yeah, he's been doing really well, and I've always kept in touch with him, and yeah, he's been flying around the world doing his thing. Very much on the kind of defected house style now. And yeah, as Low Stepper.
And then Elite Force, what's his name?
Simon Shackleton.
Yeah. I love him. I think he has struggled, but I think he's a talent. And he was Elite Force and also something else.
Zodiac Cartel. And
yeah.
He was Zodiac Cartel, and before that he was, oh God, no, you're a Lunatic Calm.
Yeah, so I knew him as Elite Force and Zodiac Cartel. Okay, we can start.
Yes, Elite Force. He's a big burner, is Elite Force. So, welcome to the second episode of Intuition with me, your host Sacha, and I am very excited and happy to be introducing two friends of mine who are all about Burning Man, and that is what this episode is all about. It is actually when my healing journey first began, without me even realizing it. I had no idea, but I do know now. And it was due to these guys, or Jeff specifically, that I actually ended up at Burning Man. So welcome, Jefr Tale, the king of the Root Society, is how I know you.
Hey, Sandra.
I know that's how I always think of you. And his right-hand man, Skywalker. Welcome to my podcast.
Yeah.
How you doing? And you guys doing well?
Yeah, we're doing great. I'm dropping my phone, but other than that, I'm on. It's good to hear and see you, and it's been fun to watch your transformation. Especially over the last few years, just as you're kind of reinventing yourself, and I think that's part of the special sauce that like keeps life exciting. And I'm excited to reconnect and chat.
I'm excited as well, and yeah, it's been a mad and crazy and messed up last 3 years. It has been quite a journey for us all, and yeah, I'm just very happy to be here, live, well, and kicking. And yeah, it has been a right journey, and that last couple of years is I've thought about Burning Man many times, and it became something that meant a huge amount to me from the moment that I landed. So to let everybody know, I was a DJ agent. So we're going back to 2019 was when I very first heard about Burning Man. And it was 2019. I was DJ agent running Ideal DJs. And I had an artist called Will Bailey, who had other names, including Twalker and Bass Weasel. And he let me know, he said, I've been invited to Burning Man. And I was like, really? And I believe, Jeff, and you can tell me if this is all right, because this is what this podcast is all about, is us kind of sharing the memories and reminding ourselves where it all began. And yeah, it was on MySpace, as far as I'm aware, that you contacted Will and invited him to Burning Man.
So we should qualify something. You said 2019, but I think it was 2009.
2009. Yeah, that's typically right. Me. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. So this is
so
why
I don't know.
That's
critical enough.
And we're going back to 2009.
Yeah, so I don't know if you might want to just kick that off again, because that's pretty critical, because 2019, it basically had played out, whereas 2009. It's
Yeah,
what,
so we don't need to
14?
go back again. It was 2009, and thank you for correcting me, Jeff. But yeah, we are going right the way back to 2009. And yeah, it was one of the MySpace days. People remember MySpace. And yeah, Will told me that you contacted him on MySpace and invited him to Burning Man. And being a DJ agent, I was like, oh, what was he offering?
Yeah, and the offer is to change your life.
Exactly that. I didn't know that. Will didn't know that. But being a DJ agent, it was a normal thing. How much the offering is. Like, well, apparently nobody gets paid for Burning Man. I was like, right, okay, well, if you want to do it, that's fine. But being the DJ agent, I was like, I'll put it in the diary. All good, but there's no money involved, so you can kind of sort it out between yourselves, and I'll make sure it's in the diary.
Right, right. As any good agent would.
And so he went off to Burning Man. I remember him going off there. He was doing quite a lot of gigs in the States at the time anyway. I think he was in LA anyway. And I remember him coming out there, just flying straight into Reno, I believe. You had him picked up. And he came and did 1 or 2 gigs, I think, on the Player with you. And all I knew at this point was when he came back, and I said, how was Burning Man? He went, I sat in a wigwam and heated up for 2 days.
Yeah. And that was his only reaction, or he had a few others?
That's all I remember him saying.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you remember?
Well, so we probably step back a little bit. We started Root Society really as an idea in 2003.
2003.
2003.
Right.
Skywalker and I, Daniel, that's with us. His playa name is Skywalker. My DJ name is Jefr Tale, and so I just go by Jeffr on the playa. And we started. I started in 2003. Sky and I worked together, I think, by 2005, maybe even 2004. And we have been going to the playa and building a nightclub in the desert. Burning Man is located about 2 hours outside of Reno, Nevada, in basically like in a salt flat, which is I don't know how big it is, but it might be 300-400 acres of flat dust, basically, that's hard packs, turns into water for part of the year. It dries out kind of just in time for us to be out, and it is a art and music festival, and it has a set of principles, Burning Man, and we won't maybe spend too much time defining Burning Man, but inside Burning Man, you actually have an opportunity to kind of build whatever you want. And by buying a ticket to Burning Man, which now costs about $500, maybe it was about $200 back then, and you could get a space, and you could build what you wanted. If you wanted to build a caterpillar cocoon and have 6 people live in it for a week, you could do that. Our choice was to build a nightclub, and we started out with smaller nightclubs, and it's called a theme camp. And by 2005, 2006, it was called Root Society, which was the roots of our friendships. And I think this call is reflective of that, because it's actually by meeting people that I met Skywalker, and we became lifelong, kind of best friends and partners in crime in building Root Society. And then, Sacha, I met you through Will. I think that is correct. And, we'll talk about that story, but here we are, I don't know,
just
14 years later, and, we're still friends. And that's, I think, really reflective of kind of the spirit of our camp and Root Society in general. So if I just spend one more minute, Root Society basically is a volunteer camp We started out with like 20 or 30. When we did it the last year in 2019, we had very close to 300 volunteers. And so we feed and house all those volunteers. And then we build a structure in the desert. We bring in a, rock and roll size, big club size sound system. And I'm talking, there's no decibel limits. And, we run, kind of super subs. I run Bass Boss. It used to be called Bass Max. And I think we ran Quad 21s this past time when we were there in 2019. And so just an incredible sound system. And so there's a part of camp which is about volunteering. There's a part of camp which is about building a nightclub. There's a part of camp which is about building a brand, because you can go anywhere at Burning Man. And so getting Root Society so that it was a draw. One of the things I realized early on, I was a DJ, is that I needed to attract other DJs. And so that brings us to our story, where I would reach out to who I thought were the hot DJs. Will Bailey was, I think, as Twalker had a couple of hits, and there was a certain kind of like big bass sound that I just like. I was all about it. And I think through Will coming and playing, and then there were a couple other guys, Elite Force, Jody Wisternoff. He was half of Way Out West, and he was just starting to kind of do his own thing. He's obviously gone on and done, great stuff, especially recently. And then there was another guy, Rich. I think Filthy Rich and Spectre were his two handles, and I think I met him through you. So I built relationships with DJs and with agents all over, and just about started Bass Nectar, right out of our camp. I don't know, people, DJs that if you look at like Wes, if you look at Skrillex, you look at lots of DJs that are well known wanted to play on the Root Society stage.
Everybody wants to play.
And it became kind of like a DJ vacation. And we referenced that we don't pay our DJs. We will.
Nobody gets paid at Burning Man, do they?
No. And in fact, our entire camp is a gift. And so a big part of what Skywalker and I do is do the fundraising and also, self-contribution to basically bring that gift to the playa. We do, as you called out, pick up the DJs in Reno. We put them up, we feed them, we take care of them. And through time, the DJs have come back year after year because of the joy. It's a bit of a DJ vacation for DJs that are on the grind, traveling around the world to do something different. So that's your backdrop. Sorry to talk so much, but that's the beginning.
You can talk as much as you like, Jeff. And as you start to talk about the playa, all I can feel is the excitement rising above me as you talk, because it is such a magical place. It is such a magical place, and I had absolutely no idea what I was letting myself in for, what it was all about at all when I arrived. It was a incredibly refreshing change from the many kind of events that I've gone to, which are and have become more and more just about the money. And the more about the money it is, the less I seem to enjoy them. And so for me, obviously, everybody said, oh, there's no money in the desert. There's no money. That's the first thing that you hear about. Because I hadn't, apart from Will saying about it, I'd, even though I was sending my DJs around the world and all of this kind of thing, I still hadn't heard about it. And so when the next year after Will played, you called me and said, would I like to bring 4 of my DJs to the desert? And so it was that. And then I said, oh, you know, I looked at my DJs, looked at who would want to go, you know, all of this kind of thing. And my 4 main DJs, Elite Force had been going to the Burn for a long time. And Elite Force, I was looking after, I think, 40 DJs at that point. So Filthy Rich and Will Bailey were 2 of my closest DJs. So I managed them. I did their bookings and kind of the whole 360 for them. Whereas Elite Force, I hadn't been working with for so long. He had another manager. I used to deal with the manager quite a lot. So actually, even though I was looking after Elite Force, I actually got to know him in the desert, which is a crazy thing. A really crazy.
Yeah, we should just pause on Simon for a second, because I think he's a wonderful DJ, but he's a great person. You know, good Burning Man soul. I've continued to stay in touch with him over the years, and you know, it's a
He's
challenge.
a big burner.
Yeah, it's a challenge. My phone doesn't stay on this on my steering wheel. So, it's a big challenge to keep up with, you know, your love for the music, and you know, I just think Simon is just representative of both the quality of the DJ that goes to Burning Man, but also just quality of DJs generally. He's a great guy.
It was very much, and you know, like you said, you know, he's a breaks artist, and at the time that I started looking after him, breaks was kind of slightly had its day, well, not had its day, but you know, it wasn't and he was literally had 20 tracks over Beatport. He was like 1 to 20 on the breaks chart, but there was hardly any breaks gigs around. And so, you know, and that's never easy. But it was Shaq that I first spoke to and said, look, you know, I've been invited to the Burn, and you told me a little bit about it, and I was like, right, okay, yeah, this sounds like fun. And so I did my normal DJ manager thing, and invited Rich, who was my top DJ and my closest DJ. And obviously Will was already, you know, yeah, I'm up for coming. And then Jody was the other one, and I think I asked probably a couple of others, but obviously not everybody's up for coming and not getting paid and these kind of things. So it was always interesting to see who was up for it.
I definitely remember when you guys came, right? My recollection is that you arrived as artists and you left as burners, right?
That's great. I love that.
But there was a transformation, and this notion that arriving just with your talent wasn't enough to succeed in the playa. And then really the whole team changed and became much more part of the camp than just performers, right? And it was awesome. It was awesome.
That is. I mean, you know, you got it in a nutshell there. That is really what happened to me.
I remember being on the playa when you arrived in the Mac Daddy RV. Like, I had never seen a vehicle like this before.
It was.
Right? And I remember that people got out of the RV with this gobsmacking look, like, where did you bring us, Sasha? What is the story? This is not going to be a good experience.
That is exactly what it was. I flew into Vegas with Filthy Rich, and Will was already in LA. So he flew over to Vegas to meet us. We got off, we went straight to the trailer park, the RV park, and they said, yeah, the keys are there, it's over there. And I was like, right, okay, trundled off. And then I come up to this 40-foot black RV. I was like, right, it was a 10 sleeper. And I was like, okay, this is a beast. And me and Rich were just looking at it going, wow, this is big, isn't it? So then we've hopped in and I did most of the driving. It was me, Rich, and Will, and both their two girlfriends. And yeah, I did most of the driving up there. They were asleep in the back. And we arrived to the desert at night time.
That's right.
Yeah, and the queue wasn't too bad, so we did get in quite quickly. And as we're coming through, I'm like, all I can see is the lights. I'm like, yeah, this looks like my kind of thing. All the pretty lights is all I could see in front. And, you know, and I was like, I get more and more excited, and everybody's getting dressed up, and we're putting our fancy dress on, and we're putting our makeup on. I was like, yeah, it's really exciting. This is all good. And then you get to the door, and it's the whole, have you been before? Oh, we've lost Jeff.
I'm here.
You're still there.
I'm here. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, have you been before? And, you know, you get there, and I'd already been warned that if you say you're a virgin, then you've got to get out, do your whole earth angel thing, or the boys have got to go and ring the bell, you know, half naked, all of this. And I'm like, I've already been told. So as they said, have you been before? I'm like, yeah, I've been before. Like, I drive in. So we drive in, and like you said, you know, I found my way through around the little roads, you know, through the camp, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, because it's dark. You can't really see anything but lights, as you know, and just all of these just mad things. And I'm like, oh, wow, what is going on here? And I remember getting out of the RV and you and Jeff being there. And all I can describe it as is the feeling that I first had when I stepped into my very first ever rave. When everything is new, when the world is wonderful, and everybody just wants to play, and everybody's having a lovely time. And yeah, I remember arriving and you welcome us, and me feeling just like that, but still being in I was very stressed before I left the country, let's put it like that. My first podcast is all about where I was at before I actually left the UK. And there was a lot going on in my life, I was breaking up with my boyfriend. The business was 4 years old. My accountant told me I was a busy fool and there was loads of money going through the business, but I wasn't making any. And that I had also just helped my mum into rehab and paid for her with a long-standing alcohol addiction. And she had been brave and strong enough to want the help. And I had just put her into rehab and she'd just come out. So that was 3 weeks before I left. All of that was going on in my life. So I was very stressed. I was trying to make everything work. But I didn't have much money and I was scraping and scrimping to get to the desert myself. I'd managed to get the DJs the gigs so that they could be out there and their flights were paid for. And so, yeah, I was scraping around, but I was very, very excited about coming. So when I arrived, I was actually had been feeling very stressed before I left. And as I walked into the desert and as I opened those doors, that feeling of release was something that I hadn't felt for a very, 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 very long time at that point. And I know that was the point that it started for me, as in the fact of, I now know that if I hadn't had that release when I did, and if I hadn't started upon that journey, I really don't think I would be where I am now in any way. Because to be released from the pressure, let's put it like that, be released from the pressure, which was basically what happened as I opened that door and walked onto the player for the first time. All the weight of the world felt like it was on my shoulders before I drove in. And as I started to walk out and have that feeling of release, of pressure, everything paled all of the problems in the world, everything that had been going on in the nightmares, everything was just suddenly gone. And I was in the player and in the moment and in the now. And that feeling of excitement and that feeling of like, oh my, just being released of that was incredibly huge for me. And one of the first things that happened was I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, I've got reception, getting all excited. Like, oh, I've got reception. And then it flashed up, you can only contact people on the player. And I was like, oh, right. And now I'm so glad that I was not able to contact anybody and I was out off grid, not able to communicate with anybody, because I've been working so hard. I'd started the business up 4 years before that on my own. I've been working so hard and so hard and so hard. I didn't know how to stop working hard. And as you said, I did arrive in that mentality of I'm bringing the DJs to the desert, I'm going to get them to their gigs, we'll have a nice time, normal thing, and then we'll come home. That was where I was. But that changed as soon as
I have some reasonable memories of this, but my overall memory was Skywalker saying, like, who is this Sacha person? Like that was the beginning. I don't think you were fully into burner mode yet. You were still trying to like organize your DJs and be a agent. And it was like, okay, we're on playa time now. And you're like, what is playa time? That doesn't make any sense to me. and take me and show me these places where my guys are going to play. And it's like, okay, well, there's no bikes right now. And you were like, what do you mean no bikes? And I remember looking at Sky and I was like, Sacha is a gift for us. You're remembering that, right? And I honestly think that the transition for you from like, okay, this is a dusty, crazy place where I've got to do my job, to this is a place that I can call home. I think that transition actually happened over that entire burn. I'm not sure that the way I remember it is that, from the first moment. And, so.
The feeling I had from this first moment, but I still had that head on as well. So I was having this feeling of being at my first rave and everything being amazing. But I also had that part of my head going, oh, you still got your job to do all the time. You still, and it was, you're 100% right. It was a process that happened over the week.
I actually think like, well, today, most people, we hear the use of the word transformation, right? And I usually think that people use it in a way that is idiotic. They don't know what they're talking about. A real transformation is you started as something and you ended as something else, right? And I think Burning Man is actually transformational, right? You start in one place as a person, and then no matter what your length of time at the event is, you emerge somebody different. And it's a positive transformation, right? I totally remember you arriving. I remember, I actually remember that this extraordinary piece of machinery that you arrived in had problems throughout the burn.
Exactly that.
The generator failed, that ran out of gas, that all the amenities that we were excited about at the beginning stopped functioning. And that was a catalyst. I remember Simon helping me. He realized, like, we need to work together. And I think Jeff and I would pride ourselves discreetly that there are almost no problems on the desert, on the playa, that we can't solve, right?
Thank God I had you, because if I'd arrived on that playa, not on Root Society, God knows what would have happened to me.
And I remember Simon, the generator had failed and we had to take it apart and clean the air filters. And there was Simon helping me do that. It was just great. Right?
Oh, yeah, exactly that. And it wasn't obviously just me on that journey. I had Filthy Rich, who who had started on my DJ journey with me. So when I was working for Serious Artist Management, which is Judge Jules's agency, Rich was my DJ there. I brought him into there, and it was him that I took when I started the new agency. So we're kind of been in it with him since the start. So for the 4 years, he was my main DJ. Then Will came along, and then lots of others. But obviously Rich was on his first Burning Man journey as well. And Will obviously hadn't experienced Burning Man the last time in any proper way or form. He'd flown in like an artist and panicked and sat there not knowing what the fuck to do and flown out again. I think that's basically what happened. So I know Will's journey, and I saw that happen to the both of them. So within a day, they were starting to put their tutu on for Tutu Tuesday, and they were starting to really come out of themselves, and everybody was really, really starting to relax into being that, having fun
and being present. You're not connected, to your point. You're there, and together you're confronting what comes at you every day. And
one of the things that I would say is I'm pretty regularly here now. Oh, Burning Man isn't like it used to be.
Yeah.
I was there not at the beginning, but starting in 2003, where it was maybe 18,000 people, and it's 80,000 people now. And I think that the thing I would reflect on is the experience that you had is an experience that could be as fresh for somebody as the next Burning Man, this idea of a transformation. And I think sometimes it feels like a cartoon of itself, where you say, oh, I go to Burning Man and go transform myself. But the thing is, there's no power, there's no running water, there's no resource other than the resource that you bring in with you or that is gifted to you on the playa. And there's no commerce, there's no place to have your money. Your credit card is completely useless in the desert. And so all of those things, if you just start there, no power, no running water, no credit card, no phone, and there actually is phone now sometimes, but as the week gets busier, the phone becomes useless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you really are off grid with no support other than the love of the people around you. And if you thrive in that environment, I think it actually bridges over into what we call the default world, like what you do the other 51 weeks of the year. And so, I think for people listening, Sacha, you're talking about your story, and it's quite personal, right? And it's easy to make it personal. And the thing I would say for anybody that makes that trek, that there's sacrifice to get to Burning Man, because it costs money and it's not easy to get to, especially from the UK. But there's an opportunity to do, Sky, as you said, is to come in as one person and leave as another. And I think that's priceless. I think that's the kind of summation of what I'm sharing here.
It really is priceless. There's nowhere like it in the world. And like you say, home, you become part of a family very quickly, and that family becomes everything. And the principles that you live by within that community are fundamentally healthy, loving, caring, and supportive. And that is my biggest take from Burning Man, was always the fact that I wish the world was like that, really. In fact, and I know that people community can be that good, and that it is transformational when we all go on our ups and downs in that journey, like you said, whether it be the RV generator dying or little tiffs and spats and things that happen within that journey, because that's life. But it is like a week where everything is compacted, and everybody's living in very, very close And so everything happens, and it's how you get through it and how you survive it and how you're enjoying that part of the journey rather than thinking everything's got to be bells and whistles. And
I think one of the things that's so exciting about it is that you go through the experience the first time, and what it validates is probably what you already knew about yourself anyway. It validates that things are possible for you, right? And then you have to ask yourself the question, why do you keep going back? And you keep going back for this reason that you just pointed out. It's this reinforcement of the power of community. And the default world wants to beat you into submission. And when you go back, you're reminded, right, of what you are capable of. And you are reassuring yourself that being on a different journey is the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And
you know, there's the principles I think might come into play here right now, because we're kind of talking about community and we're talking about love and family, but there's a set of principles that actually underlie that. You know, they're the values and how the values play out in the playa. And I think it's a little heady, but you know, let's start with one that I think people will relate to, which is called Leave No Trace. And you know, Sacha, we're used to nightclubs and we're used to festivals where the beer cups and the plastic water bottles are 3-4 inches deep, you know, in all of the common areas. And Burning Man, with its Leave No Trace principle, is, you know, if you smoke, you have a little metal canister in your pocket and you get done with your cigarette and you're literally putting your butt in this, not your butt, let you putting your cigarette in this canister. And what is cool about that is that even as the playa has grown, that principle, it's not perfect, right? You know, you'll still find a few things, but most people realize that you're responsible for yourself and you're responsible for your waste. And that's not like that in the default world. I regularly see somebody just drop whatever they're holding in their hand on the street, and it's like, you know, that urge to walk up to somebody and point at the ground. Like I have that urge, you know. It's like, don't disrespect our space that way, right? And so that another principle is kind of radical self-expression. And so this is in the default world, we struggle so much with trying to be inclusive, but it's almost the opposite in the desert, where it's like, go be who you want to be. So like, if you want to take all your clothes off and, you know, let your dong hang in the wind, then that's not my way, by the way. But just go ahead and do that, right? And if you want to turn into a butterfly on stilts and work for 6 months on your costume and basically go fly around the desert for a week, you go and do that. The way I was introduced to Burning Man is my lighting guy at a nightclub that I worked in came back and was talking about this thing. And I'm like, what is this thing you're talking about? And it was Burning Man. And he said, this is what I do. I buy a half a gallon of blue paint. I fly to Reno, and I take a plastic bag and I take a bus to just outside of the walls of Burning Man, the gates. I go into the desert. I take off all my clothes and I put them in a plastic bag, and I paint myself blue from top to bottom. And I have a little thing of touch-up paint, and I walk into Burning Man with my little thing of touch-up paint and my all in my blue glory. And that's the way he spent his entire week.
That makes him happy.
If you think about that, it's like being a blue man for a week, and dipping yourself in blue paint, and then going in trusting you have no water, you have no food, You have no place to stay. You have no plan. You have no friends, or maybe you have some friends we meet up with, but when the blue man shows up, he may or may not be my friend. It's really, but he spent 6 days in the desert and then came out, went into the plastic bag, got his wipes, wiped off his body, got himself dressed, got back on the bus, and went back to Reno and flew home. Right.
Wow.
And so that is the guy that told me that I should go to the desert.
Wow. You got told to go to the desert by a little blue man.
By a little blue man. That's right. And
in a spacecraft.
Yeah. But he said you should go build a nightclub, right? Like I know that's what would make you happy, and that's what I did. And the story, the first club we built in the desert was a wedding tent, and with yellow and white stripes. And I hauled the tent and the poles and everything and a big sound system out from Boston and set it up in the middle of the night. And in the middle of the night, this like Spanish warship pulls up like with about 100 people on it, and with the sails and everything. I was like, oh my God. And right behind it was a Volkswagen with a giant penis sticking out of it. And I was like, this is the only place in the world where you're going to have a Spanish warship and a Volkswagen with a penis sticking out of it, basically connected to one another, cruising around in the playa. And the sun rose, and people started saying, you brought a wedding tent to the playa. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And they're like, you can't bring a wedding tent to the playa. And I was like, oh, well, nobody told me. And so they basically said that that's like an embarrassment, that, that's not creative.
It's not creative at all.
At all. And that anybody could do that. And I was like, okay, well, but we had dressed up the tent, and I don't know. So two other quick stories on this. So I had like 22 soccer mom chairs, basically like chairs in a bag. And so I set up my wedding tent with my chairs in a bag all around the outside of the wedding tent. And so we had a good sound system. I was the only DJ, and we had a great party on like Wednesday night. And then really nobody came the rest of the week. And what I realized is that we were just the only one that was set up on Wednesday night. So everyone came, but people went to the much bigger clubs that we became later on. But this couple came up to me and they're like, we're pissed at you. And I was like, why are you mad? And they said, like, come over here. Here's this couple, like, basically trying to have a little cuddle puddle in one of these soccer mom chairs. And they're like, it is the most fucking uncomfortable thing that you can imagine. There is just nothing right about this. Look, like, it's not comfortable. There's no way to get into a comfortable position. It's a disgrace that you brought these. And so they basically said, you should never come back again.
That's nice.
And so they said, the only way you should come back is you need to actually figure out a better system.
Well, you did that.
I remembered that conversation. And during the winter, I drew these like clamshell beds that were low and would hold two couples, great like foam base and like a rubber cover, just keep things clean, and then pillows in the back. And those ended up being our chill beds that we have today. And that's one of the most popular places to go on the playa, is to go into one of our big domes that has about 20 of these chill beds. And and it's also the way I've met thousands of burners, just that, because they all know that they're going to come in and have a sleep in our big chill dome. So
I know it well.
So those are some crazy stories. So.
I know it well, and that was in 2010. So the stages you had in 2010, you had the Tower of Babel,
That's right.
which
Oh
was
yeah,
epic.
incredible.
That year, I remember being like, we were crazy about the grommets. It was like getting grommets into the screens to put them up on the wall.
What are grommets? What are grommets?
Well,
Grommets are they're a little metal a washer, a circle,
Oh
and
yeah, I know those. Right,
each
yeah.
piece of
So
fabric had to have grommets, and some of them
uh
would piece from the fabric.
you had the Tower of Babel, the dome. I think you had two domes and the kitchen
yeah,
dome.
two domes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right, isn't it? So two
Yeah.
domes
So
tower.
so so for some people listening, the Tower of Babel was a like a iteration of and a evolution of Speaker Box, which was a scaffolding structure that was layers deep. That was something that I absolutely loved, which I think actually started in Europe somewhere.
Yeah,
And so this was a scaffolding structure that was maybe 80 feet wide, 36 feet high, and three layers deep of scrims, which is these grommets were these rings that went around each one of the scrims
that's
that were
right.
stretched on the scaffolding. And then we had two 20K projectors that basically were mapped and onto these scrims. And it not only hit the first layer, but it hit the second and the third layer of the scrims, because the scrims are probably like 80% coverage.
Right.
And so you got this absolutely beautiful image that from the front. And then we buried our sound system inside the stage. And then we also put the DJ right in a box in the middle of this setup. And I think to this day, it may be one of the most popular root societies. It was called the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, it
That
was
was in
really cool.
2010.
So Elite Force
And
played up there, Jodie Wiskinoff played up there, and Will Bailey played up there. And so I had two things that happened to me on the Tower of Babel. So the first one was when Jodie Wiskinoff was playing. And I was up there with Will Bailey, and it is an absolutely epic stage, and seeing the whole of the landscape of Burning Man and Black Rock City and everything from that tower, and everybody dancing in front of you, being in that DJ box, was something very, very, very special. Jodie Wiskinoff was playing, and I turned around and looked at Will Bailey, and he was crying, and I was like, Will, what's wrong? He was like, it's so emotional, Sacha. I was like, I know. And he's like, oh, Jodie's so good. I was like, I know, Jodie's amazing. So that was it was a really, really sweet moment. It was like, oh, come here, Will, it's all right, And then
so
the second little story on the Tower of Babel I think it was the second to last night before the man burned, an Elite Force was playing up there. And he had this amazing, epic white fur coat on and blue glittery flares. And he was literally like, the force is with him. It was like, oh my God, he was amazing. And I was up there, and I made a wish. And I made this constant wish. I was swaying a little bit, and I'd had a little bit of a live now, and I was feeling good. And I made a wish. And I made a wish that I could come back to the player with somebody with a real actual playmate that I could share the desert with. Because as you said, like, I went to the desert on my own. The other guys had their girlfriends and their wives. But really, even though I had the boys with me and the DJs with me, I was on my own journey, on my own. And that was what really very much happened to me over the week, was the fact that the boys went and did their gigs, and they had their girlfriends there, and they were jumping around the desert and doing their thing, and we were doing our things together, but I was very much on my own journey and meeting all of these amazing people and just going off on my own and dancing around the desert where nobody I knew me, and I could, like you said, do that radical self-expression and let myself free. And I met so many amazing people while hopping and dancing around the playa. And I made that wish that I could come back to the desert with somebody that I could actually spend the week truly playing with and having a fun time, so that even though it was the most amazing place, to have somebody that I could share that with was the wish that I made on that Tower of Babel. And that was the night before the man burned. And then I had I got caught in a dust storm the next day. So quite like an epic day the next day. And it's like I got caught in a dust storm before. So I had a little parasol that I'd found. And I'd gone marching off and doing my thing, and then I got caught in a dust storm, and I wasn't scared by this point, because by this point I'm like, yeah, I'm a burner, I've got it all under control. And I got caught in this dust storm, and I just went under my parasol and just was on the floor like this. And then I got back to the RV, and all the boys were inside and everything, and I've just walked in, like come through the door like this, and I'm like covered in dust, and the parasol is like completely whipped and shredded and everything. And I was like, I'm back.
Right.
Can I share another quick story? So
Go for it.
I was tracking DJs at that time, and one of the DJs that I really was liking was Paul Kalkbrenner. And so I reached out through his agent, and Paul Kalkbrenner said that, yeah, he'd like to come to the desert. And that was right when he was starting to get big. He was probably just getting big, but he wasn't as big as he got.
Yeah.
I think,
amazing.
What's that song called? Like Sun and Sand?
Sun, Sea and Sand, is it? Or
oh man,
something.
like that song is so good. Anyway,
yeah, it is an amazing song.
So he comes with his girlfriend and some other handler, I don't know. And he came to the desert, and he's like, okay, where do I go? And I was like, okay, we have a teepee set up for you. You know, we have 26 teepees. And so he's like, a teepee. It's like, I where's the VIP area? It's like, okay, you have a VIP teepee. And he's like, okay. And so he goes in, and it's hot, and he's like, where's the air conditioning? And next thing you know, he's just basically sitting in his teepee, and he's not happy. And he's like, whatever. And so he's like, when is this set? And he's like, okay, can we hurry? And he did his set, and then he made me take him back to the airport.
Really?
So, really interesting thing. Like, I love his music, and I actually, he was a nice guy. He just did not like the desert at all. And so I had a very different experience than almost all the other DJs. If I look at another one, Nora En Pure came in 2019 and played, and she'd never been in the desert. And she came with her husband and stayed in one of our VIP tents. She
Oh, I can't hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. I lost you there. Oh, Jeff. oh. There's a glitch in the matrix.
She Nora En Pure came out to finish Jeff's story, and they were like, also, just like your experience, their first time, and they're exciting, and then words and pictures don't give you what you need to be prepared for to walk out onto the playa.
No,
and then the magic just kicks off.
And that is what everybody says, is nothing can prepare you. Nothing really can prepare you for the burn. And as you said, you can look at it on YouTube, you can do all of that thing, but nothing actually prepares you for the actual experience and that journey that you go on. And like you said about Paul Kalkbrenner, and different DJs will
react differently.
Yeah, and sometimes, and like I said, Will Bailey first year was like, oh my God, what's going on? But the next year he got massively into it, and and let himself run free. And I think it's really important for especially anybody that is in the public eye and works in the public eye and has that public persona. um it's unfortunately it can be such an ego-driven world, and
Oh yeah.
it's not healthy for anybody. And it's something that I've always struggled with in the dance music industry, and still struggle to with it to this day, as to how we are all equal as far as I'm concerned. And that's where the rave scene came from: peace, love, unity, and respect. It doesn't matter who, what titles you've got and all of this kind of thing.
I thought that
and
was eat, sleep, rave, repeat. Like what is that definition you have?
Right. I mean, yeah, and it's the it can become it. I've seen so many DJs fallen foul of it. So they've started off as really all about the music, all about this kind of thing, and then more and more kind of love, fame, celebrity influence, likes, this kind of thing that gets involved. The more they lose touch with themselves, and if the player is one of those places where if you can. You can go and release that whole persona, and you can be yourself, and it doesn't matter
what's interesting, Sasha, is that you look at a DJ like Bass Nectar, who started out with just a very small following, and over the course of years at Burning Man basically built a massive following, and his brand went into the default world and was really born on the playa. Other people like Carl Cox have come back to the desert, came to the desert initially and have continued to come back. And I think the reasoning is really that there's a connection with the burners. There's a music style that's always evolving and is very, very present on the desert floor. And because there's no control on the decibel levels, you can really express. For example, just the bass is so good, and even you get multiple clubs together playing, and there's that sound wall where your music comes through way out on the playa, but also how all of the bass converges into this sound that it is the sexiest, most alluring thing to basically enjoy. And
it moves your soul.
You can't get it out of your mind, even when you're back in the default world. The sound that is in your chest from being a Burning Man. The other thing is, if you look at DJs like Diplo and Skrillex, they would regularly go to the desert, and I think it was just to make a connection with their fans in a genuine way. And so, one of the things I struggled with over time is that a lot of times I would try to program a lot of local, smaller DJs, but you would always, in the same way that you have default world brands of, big places like Pasha and Ibiza or, whatever, that you have brands in the desert too. And so Root Society would host Bass Nectar to huge crowds, or, Skrillex or Diplo. But then I would always try to find these DJs. I found a DJ duo called Goldfish in 2019 that played live sax and live bass while they played, and I think they ruled 2019. It was so good.
Great.
And then
but you've always been able to do that. Bring in the aspiring artist, right? Who's trying to find a path to kind of be born into the artistic world.
Well, there's a DJ named Dan Deacon. I think he epitomizes what I believe is just a wonderful DJ. Do you know who he is, Sasha?
No, I don't know.
He is a guy that basically is interactive with the crowd and invents his sounds, and he does a lot of his own original music. but then he gets the crowd to go in figure eights and all go to the left and all go to the right, which is now like a big trend in the big festivals, but he's been doing that for years.
Right.
And so that kind of interaction is good. And then you get somebody like Nora En Pure that said, look, I want to play a sunrise set at Burning Man. And that was for her soul to fill her up. But also then the marketing opportunity on the other side of that to be at Burning Man, you know, doing a big sunrise set. And, you know, probably 10,000 people came to that set.
And I bet that was amazing.
Yeah. So you get a mix of DJs. Famous Joachim Girard is a very good example. Really early producer for David Guetta and you know, some of the other guys. And he in his own right has had a wonderful DJ career and has been active and a friend. But he's probably come 6, 7, 8 times. You know,
Jeff,
there's other.
When I think about some of these DJs who came, like I actually think it was in 2010 that we have really the first mega audience, right?
Yeah. Right. So that year I was there.
That year we drew so much attention. I remember that that was the first time we had built outside of 10 and 2.
Yeah.
Right. So it was the first time we had both been given permission to have something in the city on the corner, and then we were outside of the street system in the playa. And I remember in 2010, the corner clogged, right? There was a thoroughfare issue.
Right.
And like we had all of law enforcement at Burning Man was concerned about the size of the crowd there. And I think that was the first time for us anyway, and maybe even for Burning Man, that they had dealt with some kind of crowd of that size.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. 15,000 people, give or take, at our main stage.
Wow.
And so to have a volunteer stage at a volunteer festival with 15,000 people all in one place, you know, so that's 1 out of 4 at that point. I think 1 out of 4, 1 out of every 5 people was at our stage. That was at Burning Man in total.
It's an amazing camp. And, you know, lots of people talk about it. And, you know, one of the things with the camp is it's very well organized, down to you guys. But that is, you know, it works like a military procedure in the fact that everybody's working together, everybody knows what they're doing, and everybody's making sure everything's working and it's all hands on deck. And you know, that is what, you know, that's what the camp was all about, and that's what I loved about it, you know, and especially that in my first year when I didn't know what the hell was going on, that, you know, when I ran out of water, there was water, and even, you know, the one shower was, you know, I had a shower every day and was most happy, and you know, everybody's like, yeah, it's cold. I was like, I don't care, it's cold, it's lovely. You know, when you're on the player, having, you know, we like you said, we had a shower in the RV. I think by the second day that had totally gone. We'd run out of water, that wasn't working. You know, all of that. And so, you know, having the kitchen, having the water tap, having the shower, these are, you know, your fundamental things in the desert that, you know, you suddenly realize that, you know, if I turned up in the desert without these things and I wasn't on the Root Society camp, then I was like, I would have been out there begging on the street.
I think what you're saying is you felt safe.
100%.
Right. And that is a critical factor, like in life. That's a Maslow factor, right? You know, you got food and water, you feel safe. And you know, so I'm going to have to go in a minute. One of the things, Sky, I thought you and Sacha should talk about the next chapter in you coming back. And I think that the two of you were much more active in that. So I think I'll leave you with that thought. But I think, Sacha,
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's lovely to see you.
I think you really are a great example of the reason why we do Root Society, right? We produce a camp, you know, we produce a gift that 10,000 people take advantage of. But at the end of the day, it's the individuals in camp that we introduce to this experience that then end up loving it and it changes their lives. That's the thing. Like at the end, the club goes up, the club goes down. There's a bunch of cool pictures, and that's it. But it's the friendships, the roots of our friendships, that is the thing that defines our lives. And Sky and I are brothers from another mother. Like we love each other. We actually say we love each other, and we're both heterosexual. Thriving guys that actually have a deep bond with one another that really started from hard work in the desert. And so it's those friendships definitely bridge over to our friendship with you. And I'll leave you with the fact that I know we will see each other again on the playa. And
very soon, I hope. And thank you so much, Jeff. And I will be eternally grateful to you for introducing me to Burning Man, getting me to Burning Man, and starting me on that journey. And thank you. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to be dancing around on the desert again with you.
Cheers.
Jeff, good to see you, Sacha. Lovely, lovely, lovely to see you.
Thanks, Jeff. Love you. And he's gone. So Skywalker, do you want to the only bit I really want to finish with is the end, because I would quite like to come back to the both of you at some point, and to you when I'm further on in the podcast for when I get to 2014. Because what I'm basically kind of doing with this is progressing my healing journey and taking people on what's worked for me, what hasn't. And that journey and kind of progressing it through this first season. And that's why I've started with 2010 as to how difficult things were for me before I arrived.
I think that like I said before, what happened in our friendship and as a consequence of you coming to Burning Man was you came as a rock star. Everybody came as kind of talent with this notion of being, in this certain category. And then when I remember it happens to me all the time, people evaluate based on something. And then when you're done, you have a totally different perspective. And people were reminded of their humanity. When you can't go to bed in the place that you're supposed to go to bed, or if you can't go to the bathroom in the place that you expected to go to the bathroom, how you resolve those problems makes you human, right? And listen, I know tons of people in the default world who are like completely caught up in being important. That's what they want. They want to be important. They want to be seen as important. They're just lost. Even Jeff talked a little bit about how Burning Man has changed. You get a lot of sparkle ponies out there, right? I know plenty of people who now, like, they have tattoos of Burning Man on them, and they've gone out and they describe it as the most important thing in their world, and they haven't learned a damn fucking thing.
Yeah.
Revolting. But it's like, that doesn't stop my passion for the event. It's still, if you get people to come and they find a way to be human while they're there, they leave with this sense of a different set of priorities in life.
Yeah. That's, I know when I spoke to Shaq Elite Force about it, and I think he's been about 10 times. And he said every journey, every year is different. And every time it teaches them different things. And I think, that's very much, I've spoken to other people that are, and other DJs that have gone to the desert. And they've gone, oh yeah, it was great, blah, 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 blah. And that it hasn't really touched them in that same way. But then they've gone again a couple of years later and they've had a whole spiritual journey, and it's been a whole different thing. And so I was told that it would be life-changing beforehand, and when people tell you that, you're like, yeah, right. That kind of thing. But I truly, it was an epic journey for me. And I don't know if you remember what happened the last day, and how what had been the most amazing week of my life, and that I didn't want to go home, no. But I didn't want to go home early either. And it was, I'd been on my own journey so much that what happened was the man was burning. Everybody was going off to see the man burn on the Saturday night. And a few people said, "Oh, are you going to come and see the man burn?" I was like, "Do you know what? Everybody's kind of got their things and they're doing their things." And I just felt like having a bit of time on my own. And when everything's been hectic all week and it's been up and down, I've been trying to sort the DJs out, and you were Skywalker, you were, thank God, and I thank you eternally also for this. That, hold on, let me turn my WhatsApp off. Somebody trying to talk to me. No, don't talk to me now. Let me turn off my WhatsApp. Every time the DJs were becoming more than I could cope with, let's put it like that. And there were things that, as ridiculous as the toilet was overflowing, and one of the DJs is like, Sacha, the toilet's overflowing. I'm like, and what do you want me to do? But you were my helping hand there, and I'd be like, Skywalker, wow, what am I gonna do? And each time you weren't just like, I'm gonna do it all for you, but you took me through and you helped me manage those boys as well, and do all of that kind of thing. But so there'd been lots of stuff going on, and I'd got a bit upset with various little things that matter on the player that wouldn't matter in other places, like shutting the door so all the dust doesn't come in.
Right, exactly.
Not wasting water, these kind of things that are suddenly become so valuable and important in the desert that wouldn't be important elsewhere. Anyway, the long and short of it was, I was like, no, you go off to the burn. I'm just going to have a bit of time. Now, as you know, I had this big fuck off RV. And over the week that had got racked and ruined. There was makeup all over it. There was shit everywhere. It was just an absolute bomb site. And I was like, in 24 hours, we've got to drive this back to Vegas. And I knew that it was my deposit that was on the line. And so I was like, you lot go off, I'll stay here. And so everybody went off and having, and seeing the big burn and everything going on. And I stayed in the RV and cleaned.
Awesome.
And I spent hours and hours cleaning. And I was more than happy. I was like, I was on my own. I was like, I could hear everything, the vibe was so good. Everything was great. So I made the RV all nice, and I was scrubbing, and I put all the glow sticks up, and I put all the fairy lights up, and everything was really pretty and nice. And I was really happy. And I was like, excellent. And then I think everybody came back, but I must have been really tired. And I crawled into my little cubby hole that I was in the middle, went to sleep. Anyway, about 4 hours later, I've woken up, opened my little cubby hole, looked out, and it's detonated. There's dust everywhere. There's shit everywhere. Everything. They've come back from the burn. Everything's been lying everywhere. There's drinks everywhere. There's just like, I was like, no, I can't believe it. So anyway, I was just like, and I'd just woken up, and I'm just like, like this. And they went, we want to go home. And I was like, we're not going home till later. We've got to help take the camp down. We're going to do the whole thing. And there's, we're going to have a little bit of an after party later. And this is all going on. We're not going home till later. And that was it. It kicked off. Well, during that day, there became a push and pull, massive push and pull between me and them of going, I've been in charge all week. I organised all of this. I don't want to go home yet. I want to stay. I want, and them going, we want to go. We want to go. We want to go. Do you remember anything about this day?
I remember that even wanting to go, you couldn't go, right? I remember you had run, like we had switched, somehow somebody switched over from running the generator off of the auxiliary to the engine.
That's it.
And then you had a gas issue.
Didn't have any gas
to leave.
Yeah.
So I had to get gasoline for the RV.
That's exactly it. And so this,
like I said, part of what
go.
All I was going to say is that part of what I've learned after doing this for, I think I've now been to Burning Man 18 times.
18.
Yeah. So
wow.
The experience is there are, that's why Jeff and I are great at this. Like we start a year in advance planning, and when you get on the desert, it's just like, it feels like you've been doing it all year already, right?
Yeah.
And then there are always problems. One year we went out, we are driving on playa, and we get a phone call that the scaffolding order is not going to come.
Yeah.
And everybody's freaking out. And now what are we going to do? We don't have a stage. We can't do anything. We're supposed to start building today. And I'm like, just calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Right? Don't panic.
We'll solve the problem.
Exactly.
And,
you are the problem solver.
13 hours later, I had 4 semi-tractor trailers pull up with scaff. Right.
Yeah. And this is it, like you said, like this was why I mention it is because it was all part of my learning journey and part of that healing journey as to everything that happened, the highs, the lows, the every little problem that happened, the wishes that I made on the Tower of Babel and all of that kind of thing. And like you said, there were problems with the RV. So it was all going off all day. And basically what happened is I went to the kitchen and I went to the kitchen tent and I went behind the bar and I stayed behind the bar. And I was like, I'm just not fucking dealing with it. I'm just going to stay here behind the bar and serve drinks and everything will be all right.
That's right. And then what's nice about this community is that they look after each other, right?
Exactly that. And so I stayed there and I had a couple of drinks and then I think I hadn't eaten that much all week. And I'd had a few drinks and all of the heat of the arguments and everything going off and me standing my ground. And it wasn't, it was, I have to say, and, it was very much, it wasn't really about my DJs as much as it was about their girlfriends wanting to go home.
I remember this. I remember at some point I was just like, why are they even arguing? Like they can't leave, right? They can't leave until I fix the problem. So stop the argument.
Exactly that. And exactly that. And it was a little bit of and I had no fallouts with the girlfriends before that or anything like that. But at that point, me and the girlfriends did fall out. It all kicked off and that was it. So what actually happened was I had a few drinks. Then I went over to the dome and the dome hadn't been pulled down yet. And I got in the DJ box and I started playing.
Awesome.
Now I'm not a DJ and I haven't done any DJing before that and I've looked after DJs all my life, but I got in the DJ box. So I went from the bar and then I got in the DJ box and I stood in the DJ box and started playing. And I remember people coming in going, well, what's going on, Sacha? And then what happened was Will Bailey walked into the DJ box, dumped my suitcase in the DJ box, and then the boys fucked off out the desert with my RV, leaving me in the Root Society camp in the DJ box doing what they were supposed to be doing. Which is hilarious. Now, at the time, it was all kicking off and all of this. But at the time, I was like, I'm not arguing anymore. I have to say, I'm not one to argue. I don't like arguing with people. I'm really like, I will confront anything that needs to be argued. You know, if there's a problem, I'm not shy at confronting anything, but I just don't like arguing for arguing's sake, obviously. And so I was just like, I don't care, go. And so they went, and then obviously it kind of dawns on you like, I'm stuck in the desert and I've got no vehicle. What am I going to do now? And I went and sat by the fire. And I remember being pretty drunk by this point. And I sat by the fire, and I remember Jeff coming over to me and going, "Is everything all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, because I had said to Jeff, if the worst case scenario, can I come home? Can I get out of here with you?" And of course he was like, "You know, for whatever, you know, you can get out of here with us." So I was like, "Okay." But so I'm sitting by the fire, and I've got my suitcase next to me, and it's like the Sunday, and it's like the silent burn, and I'm sitting by the fire going, "What the fuck have I done?" But oh well. And then the magical story of a guy come and sat next to me called CJ LeBeau. I'd never met him before, didn't know him, anything like that. And he came and sat next to me, and he went, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the long and short of it was, he then offered to give me a lift back to LA.
Great.
And I went back to his RV, and it was an RV covered with smiley faces, all smiley faces. And there was 4 lovely LA burners in there. And CJ LeBeau, he did try and make a pass at me on the top as I'm like going out of the desert, feeling like the queen of the desert, literally. I'm on the top of the RV, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm loving it still. I don't care that I've not got my other RV. They can all welcome to it. And yeah, made a bit of pass at me, but I was like, no passing. And it's just like, it's all good. And he took me back to San Diego, where I had a shower in this most amazing house. And then drove us back to LA. And then I got back to LA, and then got a flight to Vegas, and then met Rich back there and got home okay. So everything worked out okay.
Everything works out. The playa gives and the playa takes.
It really does. And that was my most amazing experience. And yeah, like I would love for you to come back in probably be in a couple of months now. But to just talk a little bit about what happened when I came back in 2014.
Love it. Okay, I'm thrilled to talk to you, thrilled to see you. I love you dearly.
I love you too. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's keep in touch, and I'll send you the podcast when it's all ready.
Okay, baby. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.